Entitlement reaches all walks of life, as you'll find out in this episode of Entitled People.
Our first one is from Blue Wolven. For context, I work in a warehouse for one of the major US package delivery companies. Think Amazon, UPS, FedEx, USPS. I load a straight truck, but I also handle the rediverts, which are packages that mistakenly end up in the wrong parts of the building and need to be carted to the right area, for 3 separate areas, which can keep me pretty busy. Monday morning for us was a nightmare. We were incredibly short-staffed and busy as hell, so on top of handling my very packed truck and all the rediverts, I was also assisting another work area that was way behind, assisting my manager in loading a semi-trailer. He has heart problems and shouldn't be doing so much hard work like that by himself, and checking on 3 other coworkers who had multiple straight trucks to load by themselves. My manager asked me to do all of this, since everyone else was also extremely busy. This meant my original truck would often get neglected, and packages would pile up until I could get back to loading them. Enter Entitled Coworker, or EC for short. Entitled Coworker had just come back from about a month off. She's responsible for sorting packages off one of the main conveyor belts and sending them to my work area, as well as a couple others. So when I'm not there to load my truck, it can get pretty backed up, and that stresses Entitled Coworker right out. Another thing about Entitled Coworker is she's been kicked out of every other part of the building for being too slow, and constantly complaining. If you ask her to lift a heavy box, she cries that she can't do it. If it's getting busy and packages are piling up, she cries that she can't handle all the work. If another coworker snaps at her, it's a stressful job, so tempers can run high, and asks that she do her job, she cries that the other person started the fight. Her and I have had problems before. She once dropped an open bottle of Sprite all over a box containing very fragile medical supplies. Obviously, the box had to be damaged out and claim paid on it, but she insisted it was my fault it had happened because my work area was getting backed up and she started throwing boxes where she shouldn't, but I just tried to ignore her. I don't come to work to start drama or fights. I come to work, sweat my ass off, and get paid. So Monday, as I'm running ragged, doing the jobs of 5 people, and my work area was getting backed up frequently, I walk over to hand some rediverts over to a different coworker, who is also backed up and running ragged. I look up and just in time to see Entitled Coworker phone up, taking pictures of me, my work area, and my coworker's work area so she could send them to our manager to complain about how lazy we were being. Now, for those of you that don't know, taking pictures of personal packages and addresses is highly illegal. It counts as a form of mail fraud, which is a felony offense. If the United States Postal Inspection Services found out, our warehouse could have been raided and she could have been thrown in jail. So not only is it rude, it's extremely and explicitly forbidden in the workplace. So as soon as I saw her do that, I started fuming. Thankfully, I happened to spot the sort manager, my manager's manager, across the way, so I stopped him and told him what happened, and he had a stern talking to with her. I didn't hear most of the conversation, but I did hear her crying, "Oh, but coworker," trying to pin all the blame on him for being overloaded with packages. I don't think she got in serious trouble this time, but I doubt she learned her lesson, and if she does it again, I won't hesitate to go higher up. I hope this witch gets fired. There's always going to be those employees, those coworkers at places that you work where they just don't want to do anything and they want to blame everybody for everything. And it seems like this entitled coworker probably won't be working there much longer, especially since I don't think she learned her lesson. This next one is by Random Widget. Cussed at for parking in a disabled parking space? Before you yell at me, there was a reason for it, even though I am not disabled myself. My wife is. She has the placard and she has the liftgate for her mobility scooter that she needs since she got a replacement knee. A joke that she's becoming a cyborg on the installment plan. She can walk, but walking too far hurts. So last night, my wife wanted to stop at her favorite nail salon and have her nails redone, since they're starting to grow out. Since she's always there for at least an hour and a half, I dropped her and her scooter off and took the van to do other errands. Even though the car has the placard, I do not park in disabled parking. The placard is issued not to the car, but to the person, and a quick check would indicate that the placard is not mine, and so I'd be hit with rather hefty fines that I'd rather not pay. So I get the text that she's almost done, and since I'm done with my errands, I drive back to the mall to pick her up, and since I'm picking her up with her scooter, I pull into a disabled parking space. Enter the rather pissed off woman who sees me getting out of the van and not looking or acting like I'm disabled. She comes up to me yelling about how I'm what's wrong in the world. At one point, she's screaming that she's going to call the police. Knowing that I'm not in the wrong, I just ignore her and get the lift ready for the scooter. During her largely ignored tirade, she apparently had called the police and one was in the area. Officer approaches me and sees that I'm lowering the lift and asks whose placard is that in the window. I reply it's my wife's and give the name. He checks the number and it does come up as belonging to her. He then asks where she is and I point to my wife on her bright blue scooter as she's coming towards us. She's in a skirt, so her knee and rather gnarly scar are clearly visible. Officer checks her ID while I'm securing the scooter, and when he sees the woman with an obvious sign of past injury and repair with ID that matches the placard, he clears us to go and starts to address the woman who bothered me in the first place. Wife climbs into the driver's seat, I hopped into the passenger, and we drove off. Don't know what happened to the woman who gave us a hard time, but at that time, we didn't care and just wanted to hit Jersey Mike's and head home with a pair of stickball specials. One could argue that the irony of this entire interaction, the entitled woman point blank said that OP is what's wrong with the world, when in reality, it's the entitled person that's what's wrong with the world, thinking they can police everyone and everything without knowing all the facts. And our final one is from Krisky01. So a few days ago I was walking my dog down a road when suddenly I heard someone screaming and cussing at me from the house on my right. When I turned my head to look at what it was about, I saw the elderly man who owns the house rapidly approaching while still unleashing a verbal diarrhea of insults at me. No, I wasn't trespassing inside his property. The sidewalk was a public space. When he was done, we exchanged the standard issued, "Go F yourself," and I thought that was the end of it. But no, that man decides that the next thing to do was find out where I lived, so he orders his son, I think it was his son at least, to follow me while he got his bike ready. I mean, I can't be 100% sure that he had me followed, but then again, he was able to pinpoint exactly where I was without following me from the beginning. This guy, who I think was his son, looked at me like he got out in a hurry. He was always looking in my direction. I saw him looking at me while on the phone, hidden behind a bush, and after that phone call, the entitled elderly appeared. Anyway, since I was suspicious of this guy, I took a detour, and for the joy of my dog. Seriously, my dog loves long walks. And after a little while, after I saw that guy was behind a bush, I heard more screaming and cussing from behind me. I turn around and here's the elderly guy from before, getting down from his bike, unleashing another verbal diarrhea of insults at me. Only this time he includes threats of suing me for vandalizing his property, and I had no clue what he was talking about, call the police and have me arrested on the spot for trespassing, which by this point we were nowhere close to his house, so good luck with that, having my dog killed. And all of this because in his head, me walking my dog on the sidewalk near his house, which, may I remind you, is public space, was like I trespassed on his property and vandalized it with the presence of my dog. Before someone asks, yes, when I walk my dog, I always carry the necessary stuff to clean up after it. Besides, my dog did nothing in front of his house. At the end of that, we both go our way, and luckily nothing else happened after that. But seriously, what the hell is wrong with some people? Also, I learned from the last exchange that the entitled elderly also has a dog, and that he is a model owner in his head. The only thing I can say is, may God have mercy on that poor dog. You gotta love how this entitled person is teaching their young son, if that's even their son, how to grow up to be a stalker and an insufferable person in society. I 100% agree, he had no leg to stand on regardless if you were on public property. Just seemed like he wanted any excuse to be an asshole to somebody. Alright, that's enough entitlement for the day. Well, that wraps up this episode of Entitled People. If you liked the video, please drop a like, share my content on all of your social media, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell so you're notified every time I upload, and drop a comment down below. It really helps with the algorithm and helps new people find my channel. Thanks for watching, thanks to my patrons and super thanks contributors. Have a great day and stay safe out there.